In the heart of the 20th century, a dark shadow fell across Europe. It wasn't just a war of armies and nations, but a war of ideas. An ideology so potent it convinced a nation to commit unspeakable acts and plunged the world into its deadliest conflict. This is the story of Nazi ideology, not just as a chapter in a history book, but as a ghost that still walks among us. How did this ideology rise? What were its core beliefs? And more importantly, how does its legacy continue to influence the world today, often in ways we don't even recognize? To understand the Nazi ideology, we have to go back to a Germany reeling from the humiliation of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed harsh reparations, crippling the economy and wounding national pride. In this climate of chaos and despair, a political agitator named Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party began to gain traction. They didn't offer complex economic solutions. Instead, they offered something much simpler and far more dangerous: a story. It was a story of betrayal, of a glorious nation stabbed in the back by internal enemies, chiefly Jews, but also communists, liberals, and anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of German. They twisted Darwin's theory of evolution into a perverse social hierarchy, creating the myth of the Aryan master race. This wasn't just about cultural pride. It was a pseudo-scientific belief that Germans were biologically superior, destined to rule over so-called inferior peoples like the Slavs, Roma, and others. This ideology was built on three core pillars. First, extreme nationalism, the idea that the individual exists only to serve the state, and the state, embodied by the Führer, is absolute. Second, racial purity. The obsession with creating a pure Aryan race led to horrific eugenics programs, forced sterilization, and ultimately the systematic murder of millions. And third, the concept of Lebensraum, or living space. This was the belief that the German people needed to expand eastward, conquering and colonizing lands to secure their future. It was a recipe for aggressive, expansionist warfare. Propaganda was the engine that drove this ideology into the hearts and minds of the German people. Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda, was a master of mass manipulation. Through radio, film, rallies, and even children's books, the Nazi Party created an echo chamber. They controlled all information, repeating simple, powerful lies until they were accepted as truth. They portrayed Hitler not as a politician, but as a messianic figure, a savior sent to restore Germany's destiny. They dehumanized their enemies, making it easier for ordinary people to accept and eventually participate in unimaginable cruelty. The Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, was the ultimate horrifying conclusion of this ideology. It showed the world where the path of state-sponsored hatred leads. After 1945, with Germany in ruins and the horrors of the concentration camps revealed to the world, it seemed unthinkable that Nazi ideology could ever survive. The Nuremberg trials prosecuted key Nazi leaders for war crimes, and Germany embarked on a long, painful process of denazification. For decades, the swastika and the salute became universal symbols of evil, confined to the darkest corners of history. But ideas, especially hateful ones, are notoriously hard to kill. They can lie dormant, waiting for the right conditions to re-emerge. And in recent years, those conditions have been ripening. The rise of the internet and social media have created new breeding grounds for extremism. The same propaganda techniques used by Goebbels, simple slogans, scapegoating, and the creation of an us versus them mentality have been updated for the digital age. Anonymous forums and encrypted chat groups allow extremist ideas to spread like wildfire, radicalizing individuals in the privacy of their own homes. We see echoes of Nazi ideology in the manifestos of modern terrorists, from white supremacists in the United States to far-right extremists in Europe. They may not use the swastika, but the core ideas are hauntingly familiar. The belief in a great replacement of white populations by immigrants, the obsession with racial purity, the hatred directed at minorities, and the belief that violence is a legitimate tool for political change. These groups use conspiracy theories, often laced with anti-Semitism, to explain complex global problems. Economic anxiety, cultural shifts, and political polarization all create fertile ground for this new wave of extremism. They offer simple answers to complex questions and a sense of belonging to those who feel left behind. The symbols have changed, but the poison is the same. Instead of the brown shirts, you have online trolls. Instead of mass rallies, you have viral hashtags. The language of blood and soil finds new life in slogans about protecting national borders and preserving a supposedly threatened heritage. The danger is that these ideas are slowly seeping from the fringes into the mainstream. When politicians use rhetoric that dehumanizes migrants, when conspiracy theories are discussed on major news outlets, the Overton window, the range of ideas the public is willing to consider, shifts. What was once unspeakable becomes debatable, and what is debatable can eventually become policy. But this isn't a story without hope. The most powerful antidote to hate is knowledge. Understanding the history of Nazi ideology isn't about dwelling on the past, it's about inoculating ourselves against its return. It's about learning to recognize the warning signs, the scapegoating of minorities, the erosion of democratic norms, the celebration of authoritarian leaders, and the spread of disinformation. Education is our first line of defense. When we teach the history of the Holocaust, we are not just remembering the victims, we are teaching the consequences of unchecked hatred. Secondly, we must champion critical thinking. In an age of information overload, the ability to distinguish fact from fiction, to question sources, and to resist emotional manipulation is more crucial than ever. We need to teach ourselves and our children how to be discerning consumers of media, to understand the algorithms that create filter bubbles and echo chambers, and to seek out diverse perspectives. And finally, we must actively defend the values that extremism seeks to destroy: democracy, human rights, and empathy. This means participating in our communities, standing up against intolerance wherever we see it, whether online or in person, and building bridges with people from different backgrounds. The story of Nazi ideology is a stark reminder that ordinary people can be convinced to do terrible things. But it's also a reminder that ordinary people can choose to do extraordinary things. They can choose to be bystanders, or they can choose to be upstanders. They can choose to be silent, or they can choose to speak out. The legacy of this dark chapter in history is not just a warning, it's a call to action. It reminds us that freedom and tolerance are not guaranteed. They are precious, they are fragile, and they must be defended by every generation. By understanding the past, we can better navigate the challenges of the present and build a future free from the shadows of hate. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the ideas that shape our world. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay engaged. Don't forget, subscribe Manta Education.
Thank you.